It's me.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
So I have you both on your GoToMeeting, and then I also checked out on your portal, which looks like it's more of a YouTube feed. Is that right?
Yep. And that's not LinkedIn yet. Joel is about to sign into it.
I was wondering if that might be giving you some interference, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're not signed in yet, so I'm not
Okay.
sure how, but we're about to find out.
I like that feed because I can see the agenda at the same time. So
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that one is pretty consistently up at every meeting and you can see it. As long as you're not on YouTube, that's the one that gives feedback.
okay, I just looked at that because it's delayed by about, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. So I just saw our conversation on it, and that's got terrible audio at the moment.
Hey, Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Carrie.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if anything was happening yet because I can't hear anything.
I think we're just waiting on Fred.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Michelle, do we breadcrumbs?
Hi, sorry, did you ask me something?
Yeah, I just said if Mike Montello wants to get us started, if we have a quorum, we can get started.
We have, Mike is not in the room either.
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, Fran.
Mayor Horn is headed down here shortly, so we'll be able to start here shortly.
Thank you.
My apologies to everyone. Had an issue to deal with.
Hang on 1 second, I'm just recording the meeting.
This conference will now be recorded.
Mayor Horn,
Here.
Alderman Kittle, Alderman Lindell,
Here.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Here.
Alderman Montello, Alderman Volkert, Alderman Kraft.
Here.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we get to the adoption of the agenda, there's a couple of items that are being pulled.
Mayor, offer a motion to approve the agenda as it's amended.
We have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public comments. Does anybody wish to make a public comment at this time?
I'd like to make the comment that the audio from Councilor Chambers is almost unhearable.
Yeah, I can't hear anything either, Kirk.
Can you hear me
Can't
now?
either.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
Not much.
So the door is now closed. Greg, why don't you speak into the mic, see if they can hear you?
How's this? Can you hear me?
Not very good. Barely.
I think it's the masks.
It's Ron Volker. Can you hear me?
I ask. I can hear you talking, but I can barely understand what you're saying. They close the doors to make the sound better. They have a sign on the outside of the door that if you want to attend the meeting, to please walk in.
Hey, Michelle, there's still a bunch of background noise going on here.
So you're hearing background noise?
Correct. This is similar that there is a background noise all the time right now. When people in council chambers speak directly into the microphone, we can hear what they're saying. Right now it's better. I'll work with Joel.
Carrie and Kirk, can you hear my voice now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can hear you a little bit with the static.
It's funny that's on the agenda tonight to fix the sound here. I guess that's going to move up to high priority discussion.
Yes. All right. So
Can I just offer this, Mr. Mayor? I think for the two council people that are with us in the room tonight, the both of you, if there's something you don't hear, just ask us to repeat it.
oh, absolutely. Please keep us informed of what you can hear and what you don't understand what's being said.
Can barely hear that.
All right. So how's our electronics? Are we able to make it any better so we can move forward with the meeting?
Kirk Lindell, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear.
I wonder, are you talking in here? Did you hear the question?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't either.
Well, Kirk and Carrie, are you listening through your computer or are you on the phone?
I've actually tried both.
I'm on a computer.
The phone seems to work better than the computer does.
All right.
Yeah, I actually had to disconnect from my phone because I couldn't hear anything.
Hey, unmute yourself on your laptop. I think it's your computer.
Who was last speaking? Kyle? We can barely hear you, Kyle. How do you wish to proceed?
Carrie and Kirk, how do you wish to proceed?
Hold on, I'm getting my phone.
Okay. Wait on that.
I'm trying to join from my phone again as well.
Hey, Carrie, can you put your phone on?
I'm sorry.
It sounded like your phone was giving us feedback. We're just wondering if you could mute it. And then just unmute it when you're talking, which you probably do anyhow, but we're just getting a lot of feedback there.
Yeah, no, I heard it too. I think it's when, if I'm on the computer and my phone, it does that, but it's just as bad on my phone. I can hear you guys talking a little bit more on my phone, but the feedback is pretty bad on my phone too. Beth, are you guys joining remote? Are you having a hard time too?
So yes, I'm remote and I can hear them, but barely. It's like a little bit of background. I don't know what that background is. We had the same thing on Tuesday night at our meeting, and it just started this past week, last Tuesday night when we had Plan Commission, same background issue. So yeah, the people at home, whether it's on phone or whether you're on your computer, it's really hard to hear.
Yeah, I can hear everybody except for people in the council chambers.
Yep, I can too. Anybody who's in on their computer, I can hear. Somebody is logging on with a phone and computer, and one of them needs to be muted when we have that sound.
Yeah, I think that's Kirk. I think he figured it out.
Okay. Yeah, I really think it's a council chambers thing.
Is it okay if we try and you two can tell us, or any of our audience, I guess, that's participating tonight, just ask us to repeat stuff and see if it works, and if it doesn't, I don't know what plan B is.
Yep. Let's go.
Okay.
All right, so hearing no other public comments.
In that meeting, the Plan Commission held a public hearing to review the project plan. And from that meeting, the Plan Commission adopted Resolution 032102, designating the proposed amended boundaries. This evening, this draft project plan is also coming before the City Council underneath resolution. And with that, I will turn it over to Sean to go through the slides that we have prepared for tonight and address any questions that the council has. Just give me a minute to share my screen.
Great. Thank you, Rayanne. Rayanne, one quick change. The presentation that you have up right now is the one from the Joint Review Board Plan Commission. Did you have the updated one? Maybe you could share.
Yep, I pulled up the wrong one. Sorry. Give me one second.
No problem.
There we go.
Okay, thank you very much, Rayanne. Maybe go one page in, if you would, from the cover page. Great. So Rayanne's introduction covered most of what we're getting to on this first slide. So just to reiterate real briefly, tax increment financing is a tool available to communities to help promote development and/or redevelopment on specified areas within the city. And what you see on this particular slide is one of the preliminary layout designs that we've received from the Gerard Group regarding the Dakota Meadows residency project. And then on the left side is the current status of the property in question. And big picture wise, what tax increment allows us to do is capture the revenues from new development or redevelopment to pay for extraordinary costs of that development. And perfect timing, Rand. Thank you for switching to the next page. I know many of you on the council have experience with tax increment financing. This chart, hopefully in a brief summary, highlights how the revenue is created. So if you look at the yellow rectangle at the bottom right of the slide, and it points to an area above called the base value, the property that we're proposing to add to tax increment district number 9 has taxable value to it currently. That value is taxed by all the taxing jurisdictions, and each receives revenue from that. That will not change by putting the proposed amended boundary area into the tax increment district. But what will occur if the council approves the amendment is that any new value up and above the base value, as an example, the Dakota Meadows residency project, that will be categorized as increment value of the tax increment district. That increment value will be taxed at exactly the same rates as any other property in the city. But the change will be is instead of that tax revenue going to each of the taxing jurisdictions, for a period of time, it will all go to a special fund that the city manages. And the city cannot do whatever it wants with those dollars, but what they can do is spend it on projects to help promote that development and redevelopment of the amended area or an area within a half mile of the entire tax increment district. So that's how the revenue in tax increment financing is generated. It's not taking from any existing revenue sources of the city or of any of the other taxing jurisdictions, but it is capturing new revenue, new development for a period of time in order to get that development to occur in the first place. Okay, Rayanne? Now, this page, I know the map on the right side isn't the easiest to see, but I'll highlight the color portions for you. The red lines on the aerial photograph represent the existing tax increment District 9 in New Richmond. The yellow area represents the proposed amendment territory to be added to the tax increment district. And the black semi kind of circle-ish is property that's within a half mile of the tax increment district. The new area in yellow, Rayanne talked about the two parcels that are the primary drivers of the proposed boundary amendment in order to help assist that project in occurring in the city. But in order to put those parcels into the existing TID number 9, we have to have a contiguous area. So we do add some properties in between the new Dakota Meadows site and the existing boundaries of TID 9 in order to have one cohesive area that will be the new boundaries of District 9. The projects, the immediate projects, entail the incentive to the Dakota Meadows project in order to get that development to move forward. It involves assisting them with the development, the site improvements and the development, as well as some sustainability projects that are going to be associated with the project. I believe those are solar panels. And that's the primary and initial source of the amendment. But we also reviewed the entire TID 9 project plan and added some half-mile projects moving forward should the city choose to proceed with those at a later date. And each of these projects will be decided on a case-by-case basis by the city, by the council. But in order for them to be eligible for funding from the tax increment district, they do need to be included in the plan. And so you'll see those projects listed here as well, and they're listed on the aerial, but it's a little more difficult to see it. Site preparation and analysis on the Beebe site property, trail improvements in the Dakota Meadows area, reconstruction of South Dakota Avenue, and construction of West 8th Street are all included as potential project costs. Thank you, Rand. If you go to the next page. Okay. Previously, I talked a little bit about conceptually how revenue is generated in a taxed increment district. This slide shows more the specific projections for district number 9. So what you see here is the current value of TID number 9, which is about 3.3 million. It's in that column total increment. So this year, the district is generating about $62,000 that can go toward TID number 9 eligible expenses. In the value added column then, we've included 2 future developments. The one that's envisioned in 2021 is the multifamily residential housing project, the Dakota Meadows project, which is projected to have an estimated taxable value of about 3.5 million. And then through the rest of the area of the TID, and this is more preliminary and speculative at this point, there is an additional 2 million in value that's forecasted in construction in 2024. But as I said,
John, I
that's
just
more
completely
preliminary.
lost you. I don't know if anyone else can hear him or not.
But we can hear here at the council.
Yeah, Mayor, I heard that I wasn't being heard by a few people. Sorry, just to check on that.
But we can hear you in the council here.
One of our members who's virtually attending has lost audio feed. But we can hear you.
Okay, would you like me to wait and have them try to come back or just continue at this point?
Trying to get something fixed. I know a lot of people are trying to work on this. So.
Can I, Sean, while we have just a momentarily break, can I ask you, if I understand you correctly, the taxable value that exists in the proposed addition to TID 9 stays with the tax revenue stays with the taxing authorities it's going to right now, correct?
Yeah, the base value of the district, both in original TID 9 and in this amended area, that taxable value will continue, revenue from that value will continue to go to the taxing jurisdictions.
Right, so it will only be the improvements that will not be going to those other authorities, just staying with the TID. The base value that's there, that revenue still goes to the county, school district, WITC, et cetera.
Yes, correct.
Are we good, Michelle?
Carrie, are you able to hear Sean now?
Very good. All right, so Sean, is there any additional to your presentation?
Yeah, we've got one slide left, Mayor, and I'll go through it real briefly. Thanks for your patience. This last slide takes that revenue projections from the previous slide and then lists out other expenditures of the tax increment district. One is for the incentive payments that Rayanne talked at the start of our discussion, the pay-as-you-go payments in the amount of $602,000 over time, based on the revenue generated by the Dakota Meadows project. And then the other projects, the Beebe site and some of the street improvements and the trails, are financed with future debt issues that the city will make ultimately the decision as to whether to proceed on those or not, but they're included in the plan so that if the city does decide to proceed with them, they can be eligible TID number 9 expenses. And finally, on the very right side of the page, Mayor and Council, is the cash flow projections, which show the district being at a positive financial position at the end of its life, of its maximum life in 2036. And Rayanne, if you could move one more slide, just real briefly, I wanted to mention the timeline. Thank you, Rayanne. Previous to today, last week, we met the initial requirements for the amendment by hosting a meeting of all the taxing jurisdictions, which is the Joint Review Board meeting, and conducting a Plan Commission public hearing at which the resolution that Rayanne mentioned earlier was approved. Tonight is council review, and you have a resolution for your discussion as well. And if the council decides to proceed with the amendment, we will have a final meeting and vote of the Joint Review Board on March 18th. Thanks again, Mayor and Council, for your patience. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yeah, Sean, I got a question. Can you hear me?
I can right now. I'll let you know if it gets muffled.
Okay. I actually, this is the planning commission meeting also. There's 5 or 6 houses, just residential houses that are going to be within this TID. Does that adversely or anything affect at all those houses that are going to be in this TID?
Yeah, I heard most of the questions, and yeah, it was a question we did have the planning commission as well. The answer is no. The properties in between existing 9 and the Dakota Meadows site do need to be included in order to have a contiguous boundary for the entire district. But there is no, it doesn't start any sort of a financial implication for those properties. It doesn't start an eminent domain process or anything like that. It should not in any way affect their taxable value. Their assessment will be done just as it normally would be. There won't be any consideration about that they're in a TIF or not in a TIF. So no, there shouldn't be any implication to those properties.
All right, thank you.
Sean, to Alderman Kittle's question, if any of the properties that, for example, what he's referring to, if those individual property owners happen to do improvements to their property, does that stay in the TID? That improvement is not part of this project. Does that stay in the TID, or does that go to the normal taxing authorities?
It does stay in the TID. The state's calculation of tax increment, they try to simplify it as much as they can in order to from a process standpoint, avoid confusion. So that base value is frozen, and any value up and above that base while the tax increment district is in existence, and that value could be from redevelopment, new development, or inflation. While the TID is open, the TID gets taxes on that new value. When the TID closes, though, it goes back to all the taxing jurisdictions.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve Resolution 03-2103, approving an amendment to the project plan boundaries of tax increment district number 9, City of Richmond.
So there's a motion to approve resolution 032103 in the tax increment district number 9. Is there a second to that motion? I'll second it. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll. Alderman Lundell.
Yes.
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 Yes. Alderman Kraft.
Yeah.
Yes. That motion passes. Item 8.2, updated job description for police administrative support coordinator.
February 16th, our longtime administrative assistant, Linda Hagan, announced her retirement. She'll be leaving the police department as of April 2nd of this year. Linda's been on, like I said, a long time trusted employee, been our right-hand person in the front office, and obviously we wish her well. But with this opening comes opportunity. So I've worked with Lieutenant Taylor and Sarah Reese from Human Resources, and we went through the job description as it currently sits, and we noticed that there was some opportunity to increase the role and kind of make this job description a little more reflective of what we're expecting. This this job to be as we move into the future. We're getting a new records management system here in the next probably 60 days. We're going live with that. We should cut down on some of the administrative assistance duties as far as data entry and some of those tasks that they do on a daily basis. So we looked at those opportunities to try to free up some time with myself and the lieutenant with some job duties that an administrative assistant could take on, as well as doing day-to-day clerical duties, if you will. So we did kind of rewrite that job description, and staff is recommending pull back and also beginning the hiring process. Try to get placed as soon as possible. Entertain any questions, or Sarah?
I think the biggest question I have for you, Chief and Sarah, as I read through it and kind of having an understanding that you're just cleaning up, maybe kind of updating the job description. I see what you crossed out and added, and I get all of that. The biggest thing that probably that I think is noteworthy, or interest just to the general public, is that I think up to this point, if you wanted to apply for that job the way it was, you have to have some law enforcement accreditation.
No, you don't need any law enforcement accreditation. That it's not a support position. It's still an administrative support type position. There will be a criminal background investigation done. The person does have to be criminal justice information system certified, which we do in-house. It's a fingerprinting process, a background check through the state that we have to, because they would have access to personally identifiable information, sensitive information. So there's a high degree of confidentiality there and stuff like that. So that we would work through in the hiring process. But we would be looking for somebody with clerical type skills, so potential light IT type skills, things like that that would help our agency run more efficiently.
But they don't have to be able to handle 44 or 357.
None of those.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the updated job description for the police administrative support coordinator.
All right, there's a motion to approve the updated job description. Is there a second to that motion? Second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
And that motion passes. All right, it seems like the sound just changed a little bit. Are you hearing better at home?
No.
Okay.
It's painful.
Our apologies. Item 8.4, Ordinance 550, Emergency Management Coordinator.
Mayor, Ordinance City Council, this ordinance is just the text amendment, really just changing what's previously the Emergency Government Director, changing language to the Emergency Management Coordinator. So this is not appointed individual to the position, this is just the text amendment. So state statute also guides some of the responsibilities for this position, so that's also represented. So staff will be recommending approval of Ordinance 550.
And you make the motion. If there's a motion to approve, we also have to ask that we suspend the rules. This is an ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I'll offer a motion to approve Ordinance 550, emergency management coordinator, and suspend the rules.
There's a motion and a second to approve the Emergency Management Coordinator position. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes. That motion passes. Item 8.5, support for West Central Biosolids Facility, IUP revisions, resolution 032101.
Mayor Horton City Council, Eric Stevenson, our Director of Public Works, is participating. He'll take this item as well as 2021 street utility project. So, Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm on a backup headset also, so I hope I'm not contributing to the audio issues. Basically, the biosolids facility is doing some facility planning currently and looking at some major upgrades at the facility. And right now I was exploring a number of funding avenues, one of those being the Clean Water Fund through the Environmental Improvement Funds through the DNR. As part of that funding, they're able to get, most facilities are able to get extra points for regionalization. And right now the biosolids facility, even though it serves a number of outside member facilities that bring their sludge into one central facility, cannot get those points towards regionalization. And so what they're doing is they'd like us to pass this resolution, submit it to the DNR, asking for the DNR to grant us those additional points towards regionalization. And then those additional points would possibly help us get funding and score higher, which could put us in the what they call principal forgiveness range, which the DNR doesn't give out grants to their loans. They give out something called principal forgiveness, which is essentially a grant portion of the loan. So that's about it. I'll take any questions if anyone has one.
Anybody have any questions?
I just want to say it's nice to see your face for the first time. This is Alderman Montello. It's unfortunate that we're doing it while we're talking about the wastewater treatment plant because that will forever be stuck in my mind. But
Pay no attention to that.
It's nice to meet everyone, even if it's virtually.
All right, so basically, need a letter of support from the council to up their bonus points from their non-grant. It's only an emergency. There's a motion to approve resolution 032101. Is there a second to that motion? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Kraft.
Alderman Kraft.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
All right, since we're having so much issues with our audio, we actually, item 810 is the council chamber improvements. We have the sales rep on the line, so without objection, we'll move to item 810.
Please.
All right, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So we have Missy from Tierney on the phone. So thank you, Missy, for joining us. We have a proposal included in the agenda packet this evening. Staff met last week with Alderperson Kittle and Alderperson Weinmeier to review this. A portion of this project was previously approved by the city council. That included basically in the east and west walls here in the council chambers having a large monitor. Really the biggest change that you'll see with what we're proposing at this time is that each spot up at the dais would have their own separate speaker with adjustable volume. We'd also have the ability to plug in headphones directly into that. As part of this, we would also see that we have two speakers currently in the council chambers. One is pointing towards the dais, the other one is pointing towards the audience. Because of having the speakers all in the front, for members of the council, we'd be able to turn the other speaker towards
towards the audience. Another component of this project is with acoustic paneling. This is something that we've looked into and we feel we can actually do in-house, bring the cost down of the project. To add some acoustic panels to the walls here in the building. Also, a lot of what you'll see is actually more kind of in the back corner. A lot of the equipment that we have back here really isn't needed. You can kind of consolidate a lot of that as well. So the total project cost is roughly $50,000. You'll see included in your packet. Again, a portion of this was already approved prior to COVID. We really wanted to reevaluate this. Obviously, we have, like you see our meeting tonight, having audio issues. This, even though we see at some point being able to return to our traditional meeting environment, we do see the ability, we want to have that ability going forward where folks can still join us remotely, whether it's consultants like Sean from Ellers was on earlier tonight, planning commission meetings where you might have a project engineer, that saves the developer money, that can also save the city money from having to pay folks to arrive to attend a meeting in person. So happy to answer any questions that you have. Kyle Wells and Michelle Scanlon both done a lot of work on this as well. And we do have a representative from Tierney on the call here tonight as well. Missy was not the audio technician who came to the Civic Center. She's worked more on the sales side, but we have had multiple conversations, different proposals. We looked through different options. Again, we ran through both of these with Tom and Craig this last week. We feel this is a good starting point for us. In terms of timeline, some of the equipment, again, was already purchased and it's already on hand with Tierney. The acoustic paneling, we'd like to begin already this month and experiment with that and hope that even that alone will help. The audio quality in this room is just very poor, as all of you know, just really bad acoustics. We've seen that firsthand here tonight. So happy to answer any questions you have.
The question I have for you, Noah, and I appreciate that Craig and Tom were able to come down here last week. I think it's great that we've got some council input on this. We use the term hopefully, and I don't mean this as rarely as it's going to sound, but it can't be hopefully. I would hate to see the city spend that much money and we don't get what we need. And so I think that I understand the concept of the panels, and I got all of that, but I just want to make sure that we don't spend money on componentry that in the end doesn't vastly improve the experience for the people that are sitting in here or the people that are at home listening. I think you're right. There are going to be people that are going to attend meetings virtually, certainly consultants, engineers, whatever. I completely agree with that. My question really is, do we have, when I look at the proposal, is that really something where somebody's signing? They're giving us a document, a contract, as you will, that says this will resolve those issues. Not, well, we're going to try this. We're spending too much money just to try. You understand what I'm saying? And so I would like to make sure that what we're paying for, we know is going to drastically improve the audio situation. It's very important. Alderman Roper expressed to me earlier when we were talking about the earpiece. I don't know how important that was speakers. That just seems automatic. Maybe like me talking to myself in the mirror, that never goes very well. But anyhow, but the idea that if you can have an earpiece in, right? And maybe it's Bluetooth. I'm not really hung up on that. But whatever. The point is that people could have that one ear to actually hear when they need to do that. I think it's part of the reason why in a non-COVID situation, it's hard for folks to come down here that want to partake in this process and they can't hear very well. So I just want to make sure that what we get for the money we're spending is going to give us an improvement.
Yeah, and we've spent time again with audio technician. We do feel confident that this will. Now there are always issues where we would like to do kind of a training session with council. Just knowing again how close to have the microphone to you when you're speaking. Again, if you're sitting further away, and the same thing with those calling in from home. Sometimes there's issues with your internet reception, things like that are kind of outside our control. But we do feel strongly that this will resolve the issues that we've been experiencing. We've also worked with Alex from WITC to be kind of part of the conversations too. Obviously, he has attended many meetings here and also seen in is participating virtually. Again, we feel this is really a good starting point for us. The acoustic panels themselves really is a low-cost, high-impact solution that, even for our April meeting, hopefully we can already hear a noticeable difference even just having some of this on the acoustic panel up on the walls.
I would certainly defer to Tom and Craig sat here for that. Just one last question. When you mentioned Alex, is this system necessarily being designed to coordinate well with cabling? Which may not be the technology, does it not matter?
Yeah, so we have, we've discussed about, having our meetings live on cable. I believe at our last meeting, we have already made the request, if you are watching from home, please call us and let us know. We haven't received any calls from members of the public in response to that. This would still allow us to record our meetings, as we're currently doing through, in this case, GoToMeeting. We'd still be able to replay those meetings, just not live. So this alone doesn't necessarily eliminate that. What it is, we are looking ahead to likely moving beyond having the live in-person recordings for local cable. We are seeing more and more people moving away from the local cable channel, and we've seen that, especially during COVID, more people moving away from that altogether as well. So this wouldn't eliminate our ability to continue to show those on the Channel 6, but really we're trying to encourage folks to, if they are going to participate virtually, through it in person website.
Yeah, before we get to that point, so like going through the paperwork here, you mentioned $50,000. I see a phase A and phase B that comes out to $24,073.85. Where's the other $25,000 being spent?
Yeah, so there was already a previous phase that was approved by the council right before COVID. So that included the 2 monitors in this room, as well as some of the hardware updates. So this is really just an amendment to that original.
It's an addition.
Correct. He hasn't yet. We wanted to make sure we had approval tonight to proceed with that. Yeah, so the Tierney itself specializes more in Missy can chime in as well on this. They work with some vendors specifically on that. One option would be that we get the updated equipment and then evaluate and kind of play around with the placement of those. There is a little bit of art that goes into it, but like we've discussed in the past, just having the new speakers and those things, if you still have bad acoustics in the room, that doesn't necessarily address everything. But we really felt it's an opportunity to bring the pots down and still have very effective.
We have a serious problem in this room before we spend another $24,000. Tom's got a great point. We need someone who has acoustic experience to tell us what's going on.
Here's the thing. In fact, I talked to Rick about this. You can have the best equipment that you can buy. You got to heck with the roll.
Has Tierney done that here? They came in and they measured. And so did they draw out? I think that's really what the question is in my mind. Is basically a plan B. We're confident. If you put panels, whatever, and then with this equipment, so we have had that.
So they've had their engineers come out here. That cost hasn't really been included in here. Really, it's also how much do we want to spend on this? We do feel we can bring the cost down by maybe making these in-house rather than purchase it. But they have staff out here. We do have a good idea of where they should go. And really, there is wall space in here. I mean, you're talking several panels.
No, was he sure that this would work? Because he got it installed in here. Was he pretty positive on that?
Yeah, he felt strongly that he spent a couple hours here in the council chambers. They've also participated in some of our meetings. Missy is on the call here tonight, but they've also called into some of our meetings here in the last few months. They were here in person already as recently as this past fall as well. Made another visit here. So it's a big project. Obviously, we've seen tonight the need to address it. But there is going to be some experimentation when it comes to the location and when it comes to the use of panels.
I'm all with Mike, and I'm all with Fred. I know if I buy a TV, that's the bottom. If it don't work, I take it back.
Missy, are you on the line with us?
Yeah, it's just very hard to hear anything the council's saying besides Noah. So what the hardware is going to get rid of your feedback issues, and it's going to get rid of the current system. All the mics are on one channel. Now you can program each microphone to be independent of each other. So you might have a soft talker at the front table, and the left dais might have a loud talker. Well, they have to be all programmed the same in the current configuration. In regards to wall paneling and acoustic paneling, even the acoustic panel designers, they always do what is the best guess, and you always add to it. Unless you get a waves test that can cost anywhere from $5 to $10,000 to get the test done. So that's why they generally just try to do it little by, add panels as needed. We can, for the feedback, and we can do it by hardware, but we can't do anything about your acoustic room without adding panels or whatnot to the space.
Thank you. I think, Noah, what I'm getting is that we need new hardware. Okay. And
Okay, no, Mike. They can't hear you from at home.
Yeah, you do. No, they've been out, they've done this. Their first bid was $110,000 if everything is right. We talked about it, got it down to 50. Which is the hardware that we think we really need to get this thing done. And there is no guarantees on, there never will be. It's an individual preference of how loud or soft you talk, how you use the mic or don't use the mic. So it's part of it's human ear, part of it's connection, part of it's your phone at home if you're listening in. There's a lot of different variables, but the $50,000, I think, and they think, more importantly, will get it going in the right direction and will be a much improved system than what we have now. Originally, when we met with them a year and a couple months ago, maybe a year and a half ago, they didn't think the music panels would make a whole lot of difference. They didn't really promote us to go into acoustic panels. But if we get to this 50,000 and there's still echo and there's still some issues, this is a start. I don't know that it's infinite, but I know that it's a start. And is it a lot of money? Yeah, it's a lot of money. But electronics today, high-tech technology today, it's not cheap.
But really, Craig, if I understand you right, we're going to spend money on hardware, which we kind of have to regardless. Okay. So really, the sound panels, and I understand what you're saying about the guarantee part. And I guess she said, you said, or said before that sound panels, they weren't even really recommended because I'm not sure how much it's going to help. We're going to try it because it's a low cost thing for us to do. But the money we're spending, if this room was built today and it was designed for sound, we're still spending money on new hardware. Which that whole point about one channel versus multiple channels, I know nothing about electronics, but that makes some sense to me.
That's why we have them.
Yeah, and I think in light of the fact that there was a discussion to spend $110,000, we get new equipment is a start. You know, it's terrible to say it, but short of recreating a building, that's a band shell. We're going to have sound issues here. This building was not constructed for the audio needs of today's people. That's the best way I can say it. But we need new equipment to even try to improve. That's what it is. So with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion that we approve these improvements as they've been proposed.
25,000.
Yeah, this number's 50, but we already spent 25. Yeah, just that amount that's just over.
I will second that.
Right, there's a motion and a second to approve the contract with the sound equipment. Is there any discussion?
One other thing, as I pass the microphone back to Noah and give it back to Noah, there'll be more microphones for us to use.
Very good. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Windell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier, Alderman Montella,
Yes.
Alderman Volker.
Yes. And that motion passes. Back up to 8.6, authorization to request bids for 2021 street and utility construction services.
And Eric Evenson, our Director of Public Works, is on the call. And Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thank you. So back in November, the city had hired SEH to begin the design of the 2021 street projects. They had kind of held off until I got started in January. And so since then, we've been moving forward and progressing with the design. So now we're at a point we'd like to move forward with bidding the projects. And if you don't mind, I could just do a brief overview of what the projects are. Essentially, the street projects are split into two streets. The first is East 8th Street from Star Avenue to Park Avenue, and that's a complete reconstruction of the street. There's some sidewalk on the south side for the first block that'll get reconstructed. The sanitary sewer is pretty much going to get replaced in place with newer sewer. The water main, currently, the main only extends to about Riley Avenue, and then a service that extends to the remaining houses. And there's been issues in the past with that service freezing. So the new main will extend from Star Avenue all the way to Park Avenue and into some existing water main. As part of the process, we had met with the school discussing kind of the traffic routing through the area. We met with them once, and then we went through some iterations of the routing and kind of agreed on this final concept. Basically, we're looking at the Riley Avenue intersection, turning the south leg into an entrance into their parking lot. So that one of the issues the school has is there's an intermingling of the bus traffic and parent drop-off in the morning and the afternoon. And so we thought this was a good solution. This kept the bus traffic through the parking lot on the north side on 8th Street, and then kind of made a disconnection on Riley Avenue down to 9th Street to allow for parent drop-off and rerouting them to the west over to Star. The other major change on this project would be Oak Avenue. Currently, it's somewhat of an alley that comes from the north to the south and then parallels 8th Street for a short distance over to Park Avenue. And so we're proposing to get rid of that leg that parallels 8th Street. And so Oak Avenue would come out more straight south and come in perpendicular to 8th Street. I don't know if I anyone has any questions on 8th Street, or I can move on to the.
No questions here.
Okay. The 2nd Street is Pearson Avenue. That'll be completely reconstructed from West 4th Street up to West 3rd Street. Not a lot of changes to Pearson. It'll pretty much be reconstructed back in place. There's an existing sidewalk on the west side that'll be reconstructed and put pretty much back in place. The existing sanitary sewer will be replaced, and the existing water main will be replaced. The one major change is there's an interceptor sewer on the north side of the project, and the sewer collects a big portion of the city and carries it to the west towards the treatment plant. Currently, on that north side, the sewer goes off the north end of the street and kind of meanders across the property and connects to the existing sewer in Odana. I believe that was the location of the previous wastewater treatment facility. So what we'd like to do is really align that sewer to bring it more closely to the property lines, more straight configuration. It also replace some failing manholes and sewers in that area. And I'll take any questions on either of the projects if anyone has any.
Yeah, Eric, I have a question. Have all property owners that will be affected by this project, they've been notified, I'm sure they have, as to if they want to approve their connection to the street, their homes, it's a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think if I heard that correctly, we have sent out letters to the property owners alerting them of the project. We haven't specifically talked about the connections to the services from the property line to their house. We are meeting with SEH this week because a couple of at least 8th Street, we for sure, at least Pearson Street, for sure, we want to replace the services all the way to the house. There's a potential for lead goosenecks in that area, and if there is, then we want to replace those services to the house. So we're meeting with SEH this Wednesday to discuss replacing those services and laterals, and we'll formulate a plan of attack on that, and then we'll reach out to the property owners to kind of let them know how they could go about doing that.
Because there's some problems with lead, will it be the responsibility of the city or the resident getting hooked up? Or is there a grant that we've used from the state that helps pay for that?
Yeah. So we've submitted a grant application to the DNR to replace it would be the private side of the lead service lines. So they would fund the majority of that cost for the private side. We haven't formally been approved on that, but the indications from the DNR is that everybody that applied this year will receive the funding. So that is one of the things we're going to meet with SEH is to discuss how that actually is going to take place as far as funding and having the private side being replaced and having that DNR funding pay for it.
So Eric, you're talking about, when you were talking about services to the home, those laterals, you must have been talking about a water line, not the sewer.
Right. Yeah, water service. Yeah. We will reach out to them also, just to let them know that, now would be the time. If you have any sort of issues with your sewer lateral, now would be the time to do it. And, we could recommend some local plumbers that could do that work for them.
And for what it's worth, I think that in the last number of years when we've done these projects, city staff has done a very good job of hosting community engagement meetings, if you will, and certainly hope. They kind of set the standard there for both of these projects. What's your timeline for these?
Yeah, so as far as community engagement, we did send out letters telling all the property owners about the project, gave them my contact info, told them to reach out to me if they wanted to discuss any specifics on the project. I did have some already get back to me and talk to me about the project. I had a few sign up for an email list that I plan on putting together to give them project updates. As far as Oak Avenue, I also sent SEH put some exhibits together showing that new layout for Oak Avenue. So I sent an additional letter to the property owners regarding that new configuration just to kind of get their input on that. I know in the past, other projects, other communities I've worked with, we have had public information meetings. With the whole COVID thing, it's a little more difficult this year. So I wanted to kind of reach out to them right away. Something I have done in the past that I was thinking about doing with this project is once we have a contractor on board, we've done a community walkthrough. And so we'd invite, even if council members wanted to come, we'd have the contractor, the engineer, and city staff do like a walkthrough of the project. And if property owners want to come out and talk to the engineer, talk to me, talk to the contractor, and get some of their questions answered at that time also.
Yeah, Eric, I have another question. The sewer lines that would need to be the responsibility of the resident. Is a contractor ever, I know not did yet, but we've had contractors that would do that and charge the people. We've had contractors that won't touch that. Do you know if that's part of this bid process?
Yeah, so in our bid, we will only have the sewer lines and water lines, well, the sewer lines for sure, reconstructed to the property line. In the past, I have had contractors that have had a separate agreement with the property owners and taken that sewer line up to the house. But that's it would be a separate contract between the property owner and that contractor. If a sewer line is connected into the house, technically they need a master plumber on staff for the contractor. So some will touch it, some won't. We'll work with the property owners. We'll try to get a list of local plumbers, kind of a list put together so homeowners can reach out to them if they want to replace the remainder of their sewer lateral up to the house, and the contractor that the city hires isn't willing to take that on.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve authorization to bid the 2021 street and construction services as outlined here.
All right, there's a motion to approve the authorization to request bids for the 2021 street utility construction services. Is there a second to that motion?
Second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Kittle. Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volker. Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 8.8, Phase 1 and Phase 2 Environmental Site Assessments, Beebe vote.
Mayor Horn and City Council, earlier this year, we had a request for proposals out that we sent out to consultants for conducting a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessment for the Beebe building. We received 7 proposals, which was great. At the same time, it was a lot of follow-up work, meeting with each one of those virtually, walking through their proposal. And the recommendation from staff would be to award this contract to SEH. They would begin the Phase 1 of the environmental site assessment already here in March. And then we would do the Phase 2 portion of the project in May. By that time, we'll know the results of the Gerard proposal for their tax credits. And would also have a little better idea of what that Phase 1 would show in terms of what steps are needed in the Phase 2. In terms of the costs, we listed all 7 of the consultants. SEH did have a low proposal. You'll see there's a pretty wide spread in terms of costs, ranging from $11,000 to $22,000. And again, some of this is a little speculative in terms of what they're going to find in the Phase 1 or the Phase 2. So the recommendation from staff would be to award the project to Short Elliott Hendrickson, SEH. And again, we would begin that Phase 1 later this month. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
You corrected that number is not necessarily the number.
That 11,400
700. Depending on what they find in the phase one, that number could increase if they feel that additional testing would be needed. But they do feel that they feel, and again, a lot of our follow-up conversations were, again, how did you come up with your number? Walk us through your process. Obviously, they're familiar with the site, and part of the testing is also just dependent on whether the building is going to be demolished or not. And so, again, if the building was going to be repurposed or restored, that's going to dictate some of the testing that you do. They're really basing, knowing the previous uses of the facility. They've also done some preliminary work, just with the DNR, looking at what they suspected maybe in terms of underground contamination or things of that nature. But they do feel that's at least a strong base proposal. There could be additional testing that would be required down the road.
So you do a little bit of work for the kind of scenario. Would you say that all the bids are apples and apples, meaning the 42.9, hey, don't worry, we got it all covered. I'm not saying we should consider that as a point. Or do you look at them all the same? Every one of these base bid is up front there.
Right, every one of these would be a base bid. None of these would be coming down. And we feel all seven are, again, we're all reputable firms, all qualified to complete the work. We were pleasantly surprised to get that much interest. One of these groups, I believe it's from Madison, Milwaukee. One of them is from Nebraska. So it is amazing how many groups actually specialize in this area. You really couldn't go wrong picking any of them. But we do feel that, especially looking at costs, looking at if this building does come down potentially later this year, this consultant be working in terms of we're actually soliciting proposals for demolition services, or putting together a traffic plan for having to potentially close Lane and Hills Avenue while the building is coming down. So again, we felt comfortable recommending SU.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the contract with Short Building Henderson for phase one and phase two. The environmental site assessment for the Beebe building with the base bid of $11,400.
Second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve SCH, the phase one, phase two environmental site assessments. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volker. Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 8-9, Dakota Meadows Development Agreement.
We've been working on the tax increment development agreement for some month or so with our group and with all the other entities involved in this project. We received red light comments back late in the day on Friday afternoon. I met with Rayanne and Beth earlier today to walk through those comments and provide you with this draft agreement. We were left with a couple of questions regarding dates, which you'll see and highlight in the agreement. But I also followed up with Paul Gerard late today to nail down those dates. Effectively, from a building perspective, the main building with 38 units will be constructed by the end of the year, 2021 year, with the balance of the units, the other 12 units, the 3 fourplexes, constructed by the middle of the year next year. As you'll recall, the project in total is the 50 units, and for that, the city has authorized TIF pay-as-you-go payments totaling approximately $650,000 to help facilitate the construction and completion of the development of the project, mostly associated with the solar and green elements of this project. The development agreement itself is similar to other agreements that we utilized with Phillips and with others in the community. It sets forth It also lays out the developer's obligations, including those timelines. There will be an 11-year repayment on the TIF, and 12, but the developer agreed to 11 earlier today. So this will be paid out by 3035, 3034, 3035. As we look at it, most likely 3035. The TID closes in 3036. So it will take us right to the end of the TID. As part of the agreement, the required assessment, the required assessed value of this development will be $3,500,000. We expect that based on the plans that the development will assess at roughly that amount. And as with any pay as you go type project, they will be required to pay for the construction and all of the development. And then on an annual basis, as the increment generated from the district is calculated, the council will then approve the annual payment, and payment will be made in October of each year during this process. Given the fact that we've reached material agreement on the vast majority of the terms and that we've got confirmation of the dates at this moment, and further given the fact that the developer would like to start working on this project as soon as next week, we're recommending that council approve the agreement subject to the authorization of the city administrator and myself to finalize the terms and get it to Fred and the clerk, Michelle, for execution, so that we can move this process forward without additional meetings of the city council. So at this time, I'm happy to take any questions. I know Rayanne is available, Beth is available as well, but happy to talk through any questions or comments regarding the agreement. And again, we certainly appreciate your consideration of the motion to approve subject to final interim city administrator and signature. Did I say?
That's a long time to be out of.
Oh, you're right. That would only be a few months a year. No, I apologize. My voice is a little hoarse because I spent the weekend yelling at the state hockey tournament.
I hear you won the state championship. I get that.
Yeah, but 2030, 2035, 2037. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the development agreement with LLC as has been presented.
All right, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 811, Resolution 02104, the 2020 amended budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. In your packet tonight outlines budget amendments. These budget amendments we do on an annual basis following the close of our year end and prior to audit. Our audit is scheduled for next week. As part of these budget amendments, we reconcile all of our revenues and our expenses to what our ending balance is on the general fund, as well as our other funds that we manage. And in that packet, on the last page outlines the budget amendments of not just the general fund, but also the other funds as well. Tonight I'm going to mainly focus on the general fund and where we have ended the year and what that means for some of the monies that have exceeded our projections on surplus and the next steps on that as well. So just to kind of go over those main points, our general fund revenues for 2020 ended at $7.6 million, or at 105.8% of budget. This is a favorable variance of $423,525 in revenue. This has been mainly driven by insurance recoveries of $211,000, property sales of $47,500, and routes to recovery grants awards of $172,000. Expenditures for 2020 ended at $6.7 million, or 93.6% of budget, favorable to budget by $459,379. Again, these favorable variances to expenditures was mainly driven due to cost containment strategies that we implemented in response to our COVID-19 pandemic. Again, those were mainly driven from hiring freezes for interns, seasonal and open positions, cancellation and postponement of non-essential contracts, training, wellness, and staff development budgets were suspended, and overall operational budgets were reduced by 25%. Again, through these cost containment strategies, we were able to reallocate funds to support local and community outreach, as well as potentially use that surplus reserve and appoint that for future debt reduction. So of those cost containment strategies, we had anticipated that initial surplus to be about $400,000 to $500,000. However, our actual surplus certainly has exceeded this projection. The total surplus for the end of the year was $882,000. However, a portion of this has already been committed by the council as a reduction in our 2021 capital borrowing needs. There are also an additional $312,000 that are specifically earmarked as carry forward funds, and you can see that detail as well as in your packet. These, when they're carried forward, they result in an increase in our unrestricted fund balance as well. And then lastly, there's about $183,000 remaining of surplus that is not earmarked or allocated as part of the capital budget. So this is just unrestricted fund balance as well. During the March 22nd work session, we'll provide some additional potential options for the surplus and the handling of the potential use of that for the council to weigh in, if that should just continue to remain as unrestricted, or how else we can allocate those funds. But again, we'll bring that back during the 22nd work session. Also, we typically walk through also what it means from a fund balance remaining at the end of the year as well. So our combined fund balance, which is composed of unrestricted, assigned, and non-spendable balances, is strong, continues to remain strong at $3.6 million. Of that unrestricted fund balance, increased by $637,000 from prior year, with a total ending balance of $2.2 million. Assigned fund balance increased $300,000 from prior year, which results in a balance of just under $800,000. And non-spendable fund balance decreased $55,000 from prior year, which has an ending balance of $641,000. Again, our unrestricted fund balance, when we take it as a percentage of revenue, again, we kind of look at the GFOA, or the Government Finance Officers Association, for the recommended threshold of 17%. And we have a city goal of 25% of fund balance. Currently, with the excess surplus, we are at 42.5%, which exceeds not only the GFOA, but also our internal market as well. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. The full year-end report will be brought back to the council following the audit, which we'll outline in more detail with, like we normally would do with our quarterly report. But if there are no questions, then we would make the recommendation that we provide the resolution 032104 approving the amended 2020 budget, and then also the carry forward of the restricted balance into 2021 in the amount of $699,449, and then lastly, an assigned fund balance in the amount of $99,667.
Well, and I got a question for you.
Sure.
Basically, all the numbers you get, good work, but probably of most pressing concern to the council, maybe concern is the wrong word, but the council's, there's $183,454, which is surplus revenue, well, surplus monies, that the council has not directed a use for yet. And that's something that, reading your post here, that we're going to deal with in the work session. But that's really, we've kind of talked about everything else, but that $183,454, we're going to find a home
Correct.
And last question. I just see that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities put out this, the U.S. Senate passes the Great American Giveaway. Oh, I'm sorry, it's called the American Rescue Plan. And supposedly, the way that bill is set up, there's something like a quadrillion dollars that's going to be given away. But the amount given to municipalities, but it says in here that they're talking about what the money's going to be provided to municipalities to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. And I know you probably don't have anything on this yet, but I would be curious when that comes out, what the city needs to do to position themselves to make use of that funding. But it really has nothing to do with this tonight. I just want to pass it on.
No, thank you. And we are watching that closely, and we'll keep the council informed as to how best, like you said, Mike, to place ourselves in that when more information becomes available on it.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we're going to carry these. I guess I'm going to make the motion that we approve Resolution 032104, approving the attached amended 2020 budget. The carry forward of restricted fund balance in 2021 in the amount of $699,449.61 and assigned fund balance in the amount of $99,667.79.
Is there a second to that motion? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So the 699 carry forward is 386,000 that already been committed to 21. Is that how I read this?
Rand, I don't think she can hear you, Craig. Can you hear me? Rand?
I can hear you, Mike. I could not hear what Alderman Kittle.
Can I rephrase the question for you? You want to try it again? Craig's question is of the restricted fund balance of $699,449.61. He's wondering that 300 and I'm looking for the number. The 386.67, is that already committed monies, or do you just talk about that restricted fund balance and the breakdown of those funds?
Sure. And just to clarify, we're talking about the non-spendable fund balance. Is it the 641,977, Mike? Is that correct?
It's the restricted fund balance, and I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the number you said. It's 699,449.61. It's part of the motion. That's the particular he's asking about.
Oh, so those are the carry forward funds that are they're more for a specific use in the future. They're part of what's considered unrestricted fund balance, but they have more of a specific use. So, for example, insurance proceeds that were either recouped from building damage or hail damage, those we carry forward for the specific use of municipal buildings in the future. There are also property sales. There is an escrow amount of a property sale that would be for the council to determine how to use in the future. So we just carry that forward specifically because there was a certain revenue stream that came in, and how that gets expended, the council would still need to weigh in on that piece of it. So that it just doesn't go to non-carry forward and into the general coffers, we earmark that as a specific use for the council to then later weigh in on down the road. Does that make sense?
Two different things we're putting together. The 386.67, which is the number you asked about, Greg.
Yes.
That is money we've already committed from the surplus. That's really your question. The 669 is actually nothing to do with that number.
Right, so the surplus is $882,000, of which $386,000 we've already supposedly spent for the 20 for the surplus on cars and whatever we want to do for the capital expenditures for next year. That's what I want to get clear.
That's correct.
Yep. So correct. In that 699,000 carry forward amount is the 386,000 that the council has already committed as part of the 2021 capital plan.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Monticello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
That motion passes. Item 9 is communications and miscellaneous.
Call from a resident. I know we discussed this a few months back. Six, about 700 block.
Ron, is this in the house that is? Yeah, probably in the 800 block then. We've got a number of keep it beautiful issues going on down in that area, Ron. We have been working with some homeowners there and in other parts of the city as well. It's one pile disappears and another pile shows up. So really, we've got guys working on all of those. Yep, I know there's one that had a coach out there for a while. We got that taken care of. Once more, so shows up. It seems like that section is contagious.
What is the procedure? You first
Yep, they get a letter and they get some time to clean it up, and depending on their situation and level of cooperation and things like that, our officers try to work with them, and ultimately it ends up going to citation if need be, and that doesn't solve the problem. Then Nick gets involved, and some of these things unfortunately take a little bit of time because they make progress.
some people are getting it's a fair concern. It's a concern that's lay out the process, but ultimately how we approach what our policy is, what is that goes out into town. There's a different way, better way. It is top of mind on developing a good solid process. We have talked about really back to council, to workshop and get more direction as to how we like this to proceed on some of those types of properties. The goal ultimately is compliance. The goal is not to cite, it's not to work. The goal is to clean up and comply with it. I would imagine that you're going to see requests for us in the near future as to how we approach these types of programs.
Thing to keep in mind, and I think what he's talking about was happens to be one is it just private homes? I know it's wondering from a working standpoint of the city, but it's particularly, I know that Tom has expressed to me some of the properties that was different rental properties where the landlords aren't very responsive of granting some extra power, I guess. Don't know what's about, but I think that's something we ought to research. Because if you have a landlord who's not there, it's a way different deal. And yeah, I understand exactly how it works for the homeowner, but with these landlords, if there's a different kind of mechanism that we can have some enforcement, that's something.
Yeah, we're planning to have this on the March work session agenda. We have a staff meeting this week, Wednesday. Also today, Attorney Christina Williamson, President, local issues here. So it's an item that we expect to have on the next And if I might, just for your knowledge, there's like the Keep It Beautiful committee. So we get a Keep It Beautiful plate like we have on that file that you're talking about. There's a letter writing writing campaign from them. We're trying not to duplicate services. We've run into that in the past where the police are investigating it. Keep It Beautiful is investigating it, and they're not getting pulled. They're getting pulled one thing from Keep It Beautiful, another thing from the police. And it's the water's been muddy, if you will. And that's why Noah, Nick, and I have been working. Even Wisconsin municipalities for relative information. That's why we're getting Christine involved, so we can get to the enforcement section a lot earlier than we have in the past. How these folks can clean up their property and kind of put that citation in limbo, if you will. Get them basically found guilty and give them some time to get it cleaned up, so you don't have to keep going through this. You know, when the snow comes and covers it up, it's not as big an issue as the snow thing. And so we're trying to come up with a better, more efficient process. So, like Noah said, we should have it ready to go by the March work session. I think it'll be a much better, more efficient process at the end of it to get that stuff taken care of.
If you, no, hang on.
Yes, we have a staff meeting.
Any other communications? All right, hearing none. Closed session for state statute 19.351B, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, discussion of sale of land in the business technical park, discussion of financial request from the Richmond Golf Club, considering employment compensation regarding the emergency management coordinator, considering employment promotion compensation performance evaluation of interim city administrator. Notice motion to go to closed session. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Motion and second. Call the roll.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Kraft. Stepped off there. Alderman Kittle. Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier. Alderman Montello.
All right, we're going to take probably a good 10